welcome to LifeTalk. I'm Mark Crutcher, president of Life Dynamics.
And I'm Renee Hobbs. Thanks for joining us today.
We've got some apologizing to do to you. We've been off the Facebook Live for a while and off the YouTube Live for a while because, as you can tell, I hope, we've updated our set a lot. We've had to change a lot of things around.
Yes.
And it's been a ordeal, to say the least. It always is when you always look at these and you think, oh, this is going to be real simple, real quick. But
right. No.
It never is.
It takes a while to move cameras and lights and just everything about it.
The audio changes, all the lighting changes, everything changes.
Yep.
And we like it. We'd like to hear feedback from you guys if you like the set or don't like it or whatever. But anyway, we are going to be making some more changes in the future, Renee, that'll help our audience be more involved.
Right. Right.
One of the things we're looking at doing is buying the technology that's necessary so that we can have you participate and actually be on the show through Skype.
Right.
Or some of the other technology that's out there will help us to make you more involved. But we'll be doing that as time goes on, and we'll also, we have a lot of cameras that we're not using. Right now, the way the technology is, we can only use one camera. And but we can make the show much more interesting if we can use multiple cameras, which we already have the cameras. So we're looking at the technology now that would allow us to do that even on Facebook Live and on YouTube Live.
So we have a lot of options in the future.
Yeah, and so we're going to be working on that. And our goal is always to bring you the information that's going on in the pro-life movement in the best way that we can so that you can understand it and so that you can be interested in it. And
learn, just learn what's going on.
And keep your mind in the game. Just know what's happening.
So speaking of, I'd like to talk about what Trump did yesterday. He signed an executive order that Johnson had put into place in 1964 that changes the way pastors and preachers, whoever behind the pulpit,
what they're allowed to say.
What they're allowed to say, exactly. And so that's good news.
Yes, it is. And this was done, as Renee said, in 1964 by then President Lyndon Johnson. And they're the ones who put these rules in effect that restrict what pastors can say from the pulpit. And I've always said it's an unconstitutional restriction on the right to free speech. And that's what it was designed to do. That's exactly what it was designed to do.
Right.
And now Trump has issued an executive order that the ACLU and all the other usual suspects are threatening to sue him over.
Throwing a fit about,
And they will. But the interesting thing is, in this morning's paper, Renee, they were interviewing church leaders about this. And it's very interesting that conservative church leaders and legitimate churches are lauding this effort. But there were churches that actually criticized it and said that it was a bad thing. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is, when you look at the churches that are criticizing, you see they all have one thing in common. Mm-hmm. They're these ultra-left, Unitarians, and this community church in Dallas that's the largest gay church in the world. And so it's these same people that we see supporting abortion, supporting homosexual marriage, and doing all the other ultra-left things that they do. They're the ones who are objecting.
And of course they're going to object to it. Why wouldn't they?
Well, the reason that they object is because they have never followed these rules to begin with. And so what they now see is that the conservative churches, the conventional, legitimate churches, will now be freed up to use their pulpit in the same way that the leftist churches always have. Mm-hmm. The leftist churches have done this because they knew they wouldn't get called on it. I'll give you an example of that. Several years ago, when Al Gore was running against Bush, Jesse Jackson was in Dallas speaking at a black, I think it was a Baptist church. They were literally talking from the pulpit about passing the hat, and Jesse Jackson was encouraging the congregation to make donations to the Al Gore campaign from the pulpit. Now, we all know good and well that if that had been a conservative church saying, we're going to pass the hat for George Bush, the next morning that church's bank account would have been frozen by the IRS, and the IRS would have probably been putting a padlock on the door, and that pastor would have been probably brought up on some sort of charges. But the left always gets away with this.
Right. Well, and if you can remember a few years ago back in Houston, how they were wanting to take all of the sermons that the pastors had and
Right.
to go through them.
Yes.
And to arrest them if need be.
Yes, you're exactly right. I'd forgotten about that incident. They were literally demanding that the pastors provide their sermons before they gave them,
Right.
so that the government could approve them under their 501c3.
Yeah.
But they never did that to these leftist churches. So you'd have this community church in Dallas, whatever the thing is called, this gay church, is pushing all these gay rights candidates and all these gay rights bills in the legislature. They can stand right up there in the pulpit and say whatever they want to,
Right.
and nobody touches them.
Nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
Yeah.
But a conservative pastor that does the same thing on the other side, he risks his C3, he risks his church, he risks the church's bank account. And what Trump is saying, and he's right, the church is not going to be censored anymore.
Right. And this is what my husband and I were talking about last night. Pastors, go for it.
Right. Exactly.
Get out there and say everything that you need to say, things that you've been holding back on.
Right, exactly. It's time now. You don't have any excuses anymore. And by
Right.
the way, some pastors have used that as an excuse.
No, I know,
Right.
right? But there's not.
But there's a lot of them out there that said, I can't risk the church's C3 status. I
Right.
can't risk our bank account. I can't risk all these other things. I can't risk the IRS coming in here and padlocking the front door. So they were silent, and that's what Lyndon Johnson intended for it to do, and that's what it's done
Right.
since 1964. And
With a few pastors' exception.
that some of them just said,
You know what? Who cares?
to heck with you. We're
Right.
going to do what we want to do.
Right.
But most of them didn't, and so
Yeah.
now that's going to be taken away. And of course, the ACLU now is saying we will sue, and that we want the churches. You know, the ACLU is this big beacon of free speech, so they claim, except when it's free speech they don't like.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they're tickled to death
Right.
to come in here and sue the Trump administration and to sue these churches that might stand out here and say something, except when they're saying something that the ACLU likes. So, and that situation in Dallas a few years ago, and this is not just Dallas, this is everywhere.
Right.
But this situation where the Jesse Jackson's in this church saying we're going to pass the hat for Al Gore. We can't let George Bush get reelected or get elected to this office and remain president of the United States. We got to have Al Gore take over. I mean, it was just blatant, and nothing ever happened. But now I think things are going to be turning around a lot.
Things are going to be different.
Anyway, thanks for joining us. We're out of time. And listen, I want to remind you real quickly, we do need your financial support. We've got some projects we're going to be introducing here very shortly. We just spent an hour or so on the phone with another national pro-life leader, and we're going to be working together on a project that I think is going to be dynamite.
It's going to be a good project.
It's going to be real
Looking
good.
forward to it.
And we'll be letting you know about that. Probably next week we'll be able to start releasing some information about that one. And of course, you also know that we're working on a big project that, again, is going to take another year.
Can't talk about. Sorry,
Can't talk
guys.
about it, but it's gonna rattle the whole abortion battle when it comes out. But anyway, we need your financial support. We need your prayer support. We can't do this without you. Life Dynamics cannot do one thing without your input.
Yep. And be sure you subscribe to lifetalktv.com and or YouTube. We would love to see
Right.
you watch
Right.
us and enjoy the show.
And if you have any comments, send them to Renee at prolifeamerica.com. And if you got a subject you'd like to see us cover here on Life Talk, send that to Renee. But like she said, be sure and if you want to get Life Talk on the monthly DVD, you can go to lifetalktv.com and subscribe there. In the meantime, we're out of time. And I want to say what I always say to you. Remember, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win, because winning is how the killing stops. We'll see you next time.